Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It's Me, Not You. I am joined today by my fabulous co host. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello, Jake.
Hey there, long time no speak.
It's been a really long time.
It's been so long.
So long. I missed you both. Uh, so, on this episode, we wanted to talk about power animals and kind of the discovery of power through the ways of animals. Now, I know our Melissa is a shamanic practitioner and she does a lot with power animals, and so does Jake. And Rachel sees a lot of deer. So,
That's good.
let's get into it. So, Melissa, walk us through power animals, spirit animals. Let's jump right in.
Well, asking a wildlife biologist to talk about animals, this could go for like an hour, but I will.
We got to keep this episode
I
short and
know,
sweet, to the point.
So for me, a power animal is an animal that comes to you in a journey and it's there to help you. I do think we have some animals that help us for our entire life. And I think we have animals that come and go depending on the situations that we're going through. Kind of like they're our teachers. And then I also think that when you meditate and you work with them, they begin to show up in life for you. I have a black cat that tries to walk the back line, which is kind of funny, for protection, and a real black house cat. Like, I just have seen it outside, so it's kind of So I also think it's seeing animals in places that are unexpected. I saw, like, for example, a pileated woodpecker, which is a really big woodpecker, and it was in town, and they're supposed to be in much more, rural type areas. So that's a symbol. That's when you pay attention. Hey, this animal is trying to tell me something.
No, that's awesome. I like that. Now, Melissa, you do a lot of journeying with animals. Is that correct?
I do. So journey is kind of the shamanic meditation is done with a drum. It puts your brain in the delta wavelength. So you're basically dreaming while you're awake and you're able to get messages from that side of things. And that's where you work with your animals. And usually to find your power animal, you journey and you ask, is this my animal? Are you my animal? And then you find one and you say, okay, what do you have to teach me? How are you here to help me? And then you can always look it up, but it's good to ask first.
And then is it true that you're not supposed to share your power animals?
That's personal preference. I don't like to share them because if you tell people what it is and then somebody decides that they are going to be an unkind person, you don't want them to try to use your animals against you.
Speaking of
and
animals,
it's a private thing, it really is an intimate relationship when you have with your guides or your spirit animals. So it's up to you on how much you want to share.
Now, how about for you, Jake? When you hear spirit animals, power animals, what comes to mind for you?
Oh yeah. So for me, when we talk about power animals, yeah, like Melissa was saying, that they can come up in shamanic practices, whether that be in journeying, or let's say you are somebody who attends, drumming circles, things like that. Power animals are definitely teachers. Sometimes they're guides. Sometimes they are warnings. It depends. So power animals specifically in that kind of practice can be really important mentors, and some of them will stick with you for quite some time. Some of them are circumstantial, and then versus, so that's different than, if we were to say, an animal spirit, so animal spirit just really talks about the broad range of the animals in every single animal kingdom on the earth that has a spiritual or a cultural significance. Crows for magic, also heavy in Norse mythology, yeah, even as easy as the fox. The foxes are widely known in Japan as trickster spirits, but that's because they're very smart and they love to play games. So they're also really easy when you call on them to look past lies and deception, which is really interesting. So animal spirits for me, I work with a lot in my practice just because I feel so in my personal experience with animal spirits, it's, kind of like a lot of things in life, in terms of spirituality, they are reflections of the human experience, you know, embodiments of different aspects of the ego, of the id, of all of that stuff. Like, for example, sometimes I'll talk in my readings about that little shoulder goblin, which is that little negative voice that talks crap about you, to you, within you. In spirit animal talk, it would be referred to as the coyote. The coyote is often looked to as the kind of ego that tricks us and leads us astray. Can really feed anxiety, things like that, feeds imposter syndrome. So there's lots of really interesting directions to go in terms of animal spirits, and lots of beautiful animal spirits to work with. Whether that be down to, if you make spiritual tools, what kind of animal you choose to use for said tool, whether that be a rattle, a drum, a fan, whatever. And even just, you know, in keeping artwork in the home too, I think can be really beautiful as well. My grandfather used to always have wolves in the house too. They were always his kind of go-to spirit. And so for me, I have a very fond memory of wolves. So for me, it's about family, tight-knit pack, you know, staying connected, and that psychic knowing that your pack is still out there, whether you're not on the same path or not presently. So yeah, I digress. So there's lots of different directions.
No,
there's
but you
lots of
don't. I
benefits.
think that's important to have honor to your power animals or your spirit animals by having, you know, things of them in the house, whether it's, you know, I'll share one. I really like our owls, and I have a couple of different owl figurines, and you know, just things that remind me of them. So I do, it's important to have that bond with them.
Definitely. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing was that I had the 9 totem animal reading, and that's with the medicine cards by Jamie Sams and David Carson. So what they say is each and every person has 9 power or totem animals that represent the medicine they carry in their earth walk. So these animal or creature beings kind of take on each person's abilities, talents, and challenges. So as you come into the earth walk, there are 7 directions surrounding your physical body. And then it's like you kind of like, when you go through this reading, like you pull these animals, you know, that are kind of walking with you during this path. And it's interesting what comes out, because you're like, oh, that does make sense. You know, like what's in your reading. And then what I also like to do is that you can just pull a card and kind of pull out and say, oh, what does this mean for me today? The other thing I like to do is I have a book. It's called Animal Spirit Guides, and it's by Stephen Farmer, and it's right on my Kindle. So I don't have a physical copy of it, but I'll be like, oh, I see deer all the time. Like, I understand it. We live in the country, but I see deer like almost daily. So I'm always like, what does deer mean, Rachel? What does deer mean? And I constantly have to go and look it up. You know, like I know Melissa will be like, oh, there's this, you know, like this hawk or something like that. And then I'll be like, what does hawk mean? And I'll go look up what does hawk mean. Cause I do feel that, you know, we're always, you know, I know that you guys are both big on symbolism and having like kind of symbols and signs. And I feel a lot of them can present as animals, you know, kind of coming across your path. Like I might see 4 crow outside my house, and then I'm like, okay, well, somebody's gonna get murdered. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I watch way too much Dateline, guys. No, but it's I do. But no, it's fascinating to kind of, when you're not somebody who, you know, maybe is not a shamanic practitioner, or, you know, has worked with a lot of animal, you know, done journeying or something like that. And maybe they see a lot of cardinals. Well, what does a cardinal mean? Like grab out the book and kind of see it. Does this resonate with me? I just find that fascinating. I'll see this and I'll be like, ooh, what is this? Like somebody, I think you said a woodpecker earlier, Melissa. It was funny because I just got a message from somebody last week about a woodpecker, and it's like I had to look it up. I was like, what does woodpecker mean? You know, I just find it fascinating. And how about for you guys? I know, Melissa, you like the book, is it Animals Speak?
Yeah, by Ted Andrews. But it's also about just knowing what are the characteristics of that animal. I mean, like Jake talked about fox, and you see a fox outside.
Listen, let's talk about fox, because that fox is part of my animals.
Is it? You know, or the woodpecker. The woodpecker could be like, stop banging your head against a tree.
We're looking up a woodpecker.
I mean, it's really like, what is it doing when you see
every time you guys say fox? What does the fox say? I'm really sorry, Melissa. I keep cutting you off. I'm punchy. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I
we should not
apologize.
get that song into people's head.
What
That
does
would
a
be really
fox say?
funny.
Bum, bum, da, 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 da.
Oh my God.
No, don't do it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean the
go ahead.
beautiful thing about animals is that it's probably one of the oldest frames of reference, you know, in
Very
every
true.
culture, every earth-based culture. I mean, we're all kind of born from earth-based cultures at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So even if you look at modern day symbolism, think about, you know, in terms of weddings, you always think white doves, you know, for ceremony, for purity, things like that. Um,
I
uh,
think about for sound healing, dolphins. I mean,
Yeah.
dolphins come into a lot of healing practices and a lot of healing work.
whales.
Whales.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Guys,
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you, woodpecker in the book. If woodpecker shows up, it means a storm is brewing, either literally or metaphorically. But have faith as you're protected no matter what. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and it
And I
can mean
You
it
can
can
call
mean
in a
new
woodpecker for
beginning,
energies low as well.
new beginnings, the pileated. But look up, so this is kind of my caution, because when you look up something, you can find either the positive or a negative.
I'm always looking for a positive, my friend.
You know, and so you have to have some kind of an internal sound
Okay, you have to have
like this is
discernment for sure.
you know, because people like owls, right? Owls, to me, they're really good at the crepuscular times of day. So they're good like in that shifting light that they kind of, and they're really good at seeing in the dark. They're really good at seeing things in the in between. So other cultures, if you see an owl, you're gonna die. So people could just read that and then freak out, like, oh, gonna die, I heard an owl call.
Mhm.
Well, no, I mean, go by your culture or go by what feels right. Like, ooh, this is it. And sometimes what feels right is a message to like get it together. You know,
Mhm.
pick yourself up. Here's what you need to do. So don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at the animals coming as kind of a caution and also a, hey, we're here to help you. You're going down this path. It's the wrong path. Here's how you need to pivot. Here's what you need to pay attention to. Here's how we can help you out of this mess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in the book, I looked up
Mhm.
owl and it says it's a particular right time to tap in to your intuitive wisdom and what's available to you.
Mhm.
I love owls as well. But
Yeah.
for me, I feel like they're nothing but wisdom. Like when I see an
Right.
owl, I'm like,
Well, and that's a lot with Athena. Like hers is the owl, and she's a lot
oh,
about
mhm.
um, about that too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So for both of you, like I know Melissa, you do journeying and that's going into a meditative state. What if
Mhm.
you don't have time to go on a journey or whatnot, but you really want to maybe work with a any type of animal, spirit, energy? What do you feel like is a good way to do that?
I have a deck on my phone. And so when I'm really looking for something, I'll go to it. And like the one that's today is the salmon, which is
Ooh.
a lot about like ancient wisdom and the hazelnut. And if you're familiar, like it's the Celtic death. So Alwyn and I could go on. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that's something that I have that if I really need to look at it, it's there.
Cool.
Mhm.
And do you
You
look at
know,
that every day?
I do.
I love that.
It's on my phone. It's literally like one of the screensaver.
Is it
Uh,
an app that you can download?
it is, and I also then have the deck of cards, so I'll work
Yeah.
with it. And then the nice thing is I might be doing a reading for somebody and I'll see the card in my mind
Mm-hmm.
and like, ooh, that's part of the message for me to get. And then sometimes I'll actually will get the Celtic name for it. And it's like, wait, what's that? And then I go and find it and look it up. So,
That's cool.
but it's really just about paying attention to nature. And also when you're paying attention to what's going on around you, you're not so much in your head and you are being more present in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
thus you are opening yourself up more for spirit to be able to communicate with you to get and receive messages.
I love that. And how about for you, Jake? What is the kind of a practice for you and how you would call in some power animals, spirit animals?
Yeah, so a couple different approaches. Of course, during meditation or during journeying at home, if anybody does that in their own personal practice. It can even be as easy as if you want to do kind of like a little of a guided meditation. There's actually a lot of guided meditations to find an animal
Mm-hmm.
spirit that is working with you. So you can do something like that, and you can even it can just be as easy as closing your eyes and imagining yourself in some kind of ecosystem. You know, are you underwater? Are you on the land? Are you in a forest, or are you in the savannah, things like that, and then look around in your mind's eye, imagine in
cool.
your head, what animals around.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I use card work in my practice, almost daily. So some of my decks have just animals in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can certainly use that as a way of your practice. So that makes perfect sense
Nice.
with the app that we were talking about. So yeah, or you can even, if you are somebody fortunate enough to have access to a shamanic practitioner, somebody who hosts space to kind of do that kind of reading for you, then I absolutely encourage you to do so if you feel called to. But also, on the flip side of that, even take a look at some of the animals that you feel an aversion to. Are there any animals that naturally have always just rubbed you the wrong way? There could be medicine in that, in understanding, why am I so fearful of snakes, for example.
Oh, stop talking about snakes. Those snakes are the worst.
And it's so interesting though that snakes are such a common associated with evil, and associated, in Western belief systems with like the devil, for example. But then we look at things like, Kundalini energy and the rising of that serpentine path to power, that really beautiful, untamed energy that can be hosted within ourselves. So it's really interesting to kind of see that there is always duality in everything.
There is. I mean, you're right. You bring up a very interesting point. I did an interview, and I apologize that I think her name's Danielle, and she's an animal communicator. And she was talking about how she connected with the spider, and it reminded her of Charlotte and, building the web. And it was fascinating because so many people are scared of spiders, but to hear her have this beautiful like moment and conversation and she just has such respect for all animals, but to hear her say it, it's like, wow. It's so beautiful. And I don't like snakes because I'm from Georgia and there were snakes everywhere. And I was just not a fan. Okay.
Listen,
I'll get there.
understandable.
I tried so bad.
Yours get a little more toxic once you get that far south. So
I'm from Georgia. So let me tell you about some animal wildlife.
No, like honestly, I had to help find a person. Rachel knows about this. And when they showed me the state that the person was missing to show me the South, they just showed me snakes dripping from trees everywhere. That was like my way of getting.
That was like you would have to go through the creek to get to your friend's house. See, I'm really southerning myself right now. You got to go to the creek to go to your friend's house, and then there'd be snake.
It's the creek.
I call it a creek. Thank you very much. Anyway. So Melissa, do you actually work with your clients to help them find their power animals?
For those who are more open to it, I mean, I've been getting a lot more people interested in the shamanic work. I've been doing a lot more soul retrievals lately. Mm-hmm. For that, I do help them with their power animals. It's something I used to do during kind of the turning of the wheels too, because it's a new phase. Like we're getting into Ostara coming up, and that's a time where you typically would journey. What's my new power animal? Like from Ostara to Beltane, who's here to help me with this part of the wheel? Nice. That would come in. So
I like that idea. That's fun
too, like where you learn how to merge with your power animal and really be able to kind of see through their eyes to help you see what's missing, or kind of how you can be more sensing of your environment and of what's around you. Like I was even thinking about that today with Maggie when she's outside smelling the ground. Like, I wonder how many smells we would have if we had the nose of a dog.
So true. And I think another thing about, it could be also an animal that has passed away that you do call in, that you do want to work with.
As a guide.
I do like to work with my cat, Madam, who has passed. And I will say that that is actually a way for me to open up my heart chakra, in a way that you can really open up your heart chakra and then call in your higher self, is to think about an animal, because an animal is unconditional love. And then how do you feel, sending love to that animal, receiving love from that animal, and really opening up your heart. And then you call in your heart chakra, or your higher self, but you're opening up your heart chakra. It's a little tip and trick there. So I'll be like, I love you, Gatsby. I don't love you, Gatsby. I'm just kidding. Like, stop barking. Wait. I'm in meditative state. But I'll think about my cat, Madam, because, when I was a child, young, it was the first cat I ever had was Madam. And I loved her. She's a little chocolate brown cat. I loved her so much. Anyway. Anything else you guys want to? I'm just having a moment. I'm like, oh, I love my little kitty cat. And I mean, it's very interesting. I think animals are very interesting, and I think there's a lot of untapped power. And like Melissa said, if you're looking up a guide, use your discernment. Don't trust every single thing if it doesn't ring true to you. But there may be some, truth between the lines. Sometimes there are stop signs and warning signs that are popping up for us that we just blatantly drive past it. And, maybe we need to have a little bit of a kind of a kick in the ass, or this isn't working for you, Sally.
Mm-hmm.
No shame to Sally's. But sometimes we need like a gentle, maybe not so gentle wake up.
Well, it's going to increase in volume until you pay attention.
Yeah, that's how lessons come. They're going to keep on and keep on keeping on until they smack you right in your face. Alrighty. Anything else you guys want to add in about utilizing power animals, spirit animals? Jake?
Yeah, I mean, we've only really scratched the surface, in terms of using animal spirit in work. I personally view animal spirits as just the same as I would view, angels or personal guides, things like that. You can call upon certain animals for a time of change to stand in a certain energy or assistance for a certain cycle of your life, or to help you make a certain decision or follow a certain kind of path. And then I would even say, just for people who don't have any resources to find the meaning of an animal spirit or even like a bug spirit, I always say that the easiest thing to do is just observe it. If you're out in nature and you see one specific animal that you're always crossing paths with, ask yourself, what's its job in the ecosystem? What does it do? What's its kind of story about? And what does that mean for you? You might see a bunch of ants, outside in an odd place for you normally. And that might be talking about needing to gather together with your people, that needing to organize a group of people. Maybe you're having discourse in the workplace, or even for the woodpecker, even for example, we had talked about the meaning for that, or perhaps it's talking to you about the importance of persistence and not being too focused in the end goal, and rather about the job immediately in front of you. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. Lots of different beautiful lessons and power to be found in working with animal spirits. And they are not culturally specific, they're not religiously specific. They're open to everybody. So take a shot at it, see what comes up, and if you don't resonate with that, that's okay. But they do still work with you regardless.
I love it. And how about for you, Melissa?
Just to add on that, check out field guides, or there's apps on your phones that you can take pictures to figure out what the animals are. Maybe you just live in the city and have never experienced wildlife other than a pigeon or a subway rat kind of a thing. But they can have a lot of good symbolism.
They can. Listen, Ratatouille had to go through the sewers.
Right. Mice are actually a really positive symbolism. So, take some time to learn what the animals are if you're not sure, and when you see an animal that shows up in your mind, just what are some of the characteristics, and then start to search for them. And the more that you work with animals, the more that animals will begin to speak with you.
Definitely. And I think Google's your friend. Look it up. What does rat power animal mean for me? Well, if a rat shows up, it means a project or an investment is about to pay off.
See, it's good stuff.
Good stuff. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for another fabulous episode of It's Me, Not You. And thank you both. And I hope you guys have a great night, and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.